You want to be able to consistently produce high quality content as a podcaster, as a content creator in general. And really the only way to ensure that you're doing that, whether you're working by yourself, a solo entrepreneur, or even if you have a team, is to create high quality systems, to create a system that can help make sure you're following the proper steps, that you're doing everything in the right order, and that you're continuing to develop your content in a way that adds more value to your audience and gets the word out there in a bigger and bigger way. And you can do that through the power of systems, which is what we're going to be talking about today on this episode of The Power of Podcasting. Hello and welcome to The Power of Podcasting. My name is Nick Palkowski and I am the host of the show and the founder of Your Podcast Guru, a business that helps speakers, coaches, authors, and other online entrepreneurs get their message out into the world and grow a bigger impact and income in the process. And we talk all about podcasting here on this show and in the business, because I truly believe that podcasting is one of the best ways to get your message out in the world, to have more people hear it and more people be influenced and have it and be impacted by your message. And I want to help you continue to produce high quality content, or get started if you haven't started yet. And the best way to do that is to help you develop some systems around your podcast and just content creation in general. So you're going to be able to apply this even if you're just doing blog posts. You're going to be able to apply this. If you're just doing emails, you're going to be able to apply this. If you're doing video or live stream, you're going to be able to apply some of what we're going to talk about here on today's episode, which is all about the power of creating systems for your content creation. And so we're going to be diving in. I have a few slides I want to go through. I want to first talk a little bit about the why you should really be focusing on systems. And to be completely honest, the biggest why is because it's going to save you time. Yes, by having a system in place, by having, and by systems, what I mean is a checklist, I mean some sort of process that you can repeatedly follow in order to get a consistent result. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not talking necessarily about automating your system, because a lot of the content creation that you're doing, you're just simply not going to be able to automate, or you're not going to want to automate, because sometimes when you automate things, the quality is going to be slightly lower, or it's going to just appear to be automated. And in the world of content creation, that's not the first place you want to go. You want to first look at systematizing, then possibly outsourcing. And then at that point, I would then check in to see if it does make sense to automatize some of this process. But by system, we mean a checklist or a procedure, a kind of a standard operating procedure that you can follow each and every time, or a teammate of yours can follow each and every time to create that consistent result. And it's simply going to save you time, because you're not going to be constantly wondering or checking back. You can set it up in a way, which we'll talk about here a little bit later in the episode, how to actually create some of your systems, or you can set it up in a way that all the information you need is right there. So whether you forget how to do one specific step, or you need to grab some sort of template for show notes, for example, it's all going to be right there in that system, or easily findable within your system. Now, the second big reason that you might want to create a system, and why systems are so valuable, is because it allows you to focus more on your content. You're not just going to be sitting there and you have to expend less energy to get the same result. So you don't need to be thinking about, okay, what steps do I need to do in order to produce this podcast episode? Well, do I need to, first publish it to Libsyn? Do I need to grab this graphic? Do I need to grab that graphic? What is the next step? You don't have to worry about that when you create a very solid system. You can spend your time focusing in on creating high quality content and really adding that extra piece to your content and making sure it delivers the value that you want to represent you and represent your brand. Ultimately, the best way for you to have an impact on your audience is to deliver more value to them, more actionable value, and by creating systems in your business in general, especially around your content creation, you're going to be able to do more of that And the third big reason is that it builds consistency. And so by that, I simply mean it's going to allow you to first of all, it's going to allow you to be sure to produce content on a consistent basis. I'm a big believer that the only way you're going to grow your audience, the best way to grow your audience, is to consistently produce content. I recommend all of our clients do a weekly podcast episode. And I think weekly is key because it builds that habit. It gets people coming back again and again and again. It's a reason why we have the Power of Podcasting live on our Facebook page every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, is because that starts to build that habit. It gets people used to that. It starts bringing them back. And that's also why we release podcast episodes on Friday, because it gets people used to that. It gets people bringing that back. But the other piece of consistency that having systems builds in is it helps you be more consistent in the quality of your branding and the quality of the show and everything just around that content that you're producing. It helps maintain a consistent quality level, and it helps make sure it maintains your ability to produce certain amount of promotion around that podcast. So I definitely recommend, I'm a big believer that too often content creators will put all this effort into creating a great piece of content, but then they just kind of let that content die. They don't go out there and necessarily promote it enough or bring it back in front of people and let people know about that content. The only time that if you build it, they will come has ever worked is for Kevin Costner. So I want you to make sure that you are out there actually letting people know about the episodes that you're creating. And the best way to build consistency in that is to have it as a part of your system. My system for podcasting, my system for live streaming, our systems that we use with clients, they all build in the promotional aspect in some way, shape, or form. Now, with a podcast episode, a lot of times that promotion is on the back end of the podcast. So after it's already been pushed out, then we have social media schedule that we follow on day 1, day 2, day 6, day 12, day 14, day 18, day 26, in order to make sure that podcast episode is getting in front of people. Now, for live streams, we're going to also do some promotion ahead of time so that more people are going to join live, and then we're going to have that consistent content and promotion afterwards, just like with a regular podcast episode as well. By having these systems, you're able to build in consistency around your promotion. All right, so now you are probably wondering, this is great. I understand why systems are beneficial. I understand why I might want to use them, but how do I go out there and actually start creating systems for my podcast, for the other content that I'm producing, or just any aspect in their business? And really, I'm going to go through a few steps here, and I think this does apply to any type of procedure within your business, but I'm going to really focus it in on podcast or content creation. You can definitely adapt it to anything that meets your needs. And I'm going to tell you right up front, this is nothing necessarily fancy. This isn't going to dive into too much technology. I'll definitely cover some pieces, but ultimately, the simplest way this is going to be the simplest way to just get you started and creating high quality systems that you and your teammates can follow to produce that content on a consistent, high quality basis. All right, so let's dive into number 1. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to want to start with a notebook. So what I want you to do, grab a notebook, grab a pen, and I want you to document your entire process. Okay, so think about when I'm creating a podcast episode, what is the system around that? What do I need to do? And you can pick different aspects of it if you want. For me, the way we run here in our business is we actually start with the promotional aspects. So we have all of that in there, from picking the topic idea all the way through the final piece of promotion. And we kind of cover everything, single aspect. Now, I didn't start with that system. I started very simply with, okay, once we get the podcast episode, I didn't even start there with the podcast episode. I started when I first was creating this system back, probably 4 or 5 years ago now at this point, when I first started documenting these systems for podcasting. It was, okay, once we have the audio edited, it was purely, how do I get the podcast uploaded and onto WordPress and out to iTunes and the other podcast directories. So it was just simply the get out there part of the system. It was just simply the production side, the actual procedures to get it on WordPress. So I started with that, documented everything in a notebook. And so once you get there, you're going to write through all the steps you can possibly think about. And again, pick and choose where you want to start. I recommend actually starting smaller. So just start with the one aspect of how do I actually produce this podcast once it's edited, once we have that final episode ready to go. From there, what needs to happen in order to get this podcast out into the world, and then stop as soon as you release the podcast. Start with that piece of the system. Then what you're going to do is you are going to do that task. So you're actually going to go through and you are going to follow your notebook steps and add in any steps that are missing. So that's all about that. That's really that second step is going through and actually following your procedure. So it's double checking, make sure you didn't miss any steps. Likely you're going to have missed some sort of steps. And I highly recommend that you actually go into over explaining the steps and over documenting what the steps are. So really dive in there and add any little piece you possibly can at this point. Later in future steps, we'll kind of narrow some of that down. But right now, I want you to go through, follow it step by step. It's like that old game you used to play. I don't know if you've ever played it, but we played in high school and junior high. We used to do, it was like a leadership team building type of activity where you had someone who gave you specific directions on how to make a peanut butter sandwich. And you could only do the activities, the actions that person said. And so you could only pick up the knife, so it's getting very, very down and detailed into creating your system. That's what I want you to do here in step number 2. For step number 3, what you're going to do then at that point is you're going to transfer to digital. So this is the point where I want you to start getting it on the computer, getting it on a file system that can be used in a. You want to go off of paper. You don't want to be having this on paper. Paper might be great for you if you're a one person shop and very analog. But I highly recommend going off of paper because you're going to want to be reproducing this system again and again and again. You're going to be wanting to make changes again and again and again. And being analog just isn't going to allow you to do that. And it's not going to allow you to share things in a way. So where should you look in terms of digital? Where should you put your system? You have a few options, and it's going to depend on your workflow, on the type of team that you have around you. If you have a team, is going to depend on the choice you're going to take. One choice, and one that I really recommend if you have a team, and it's what we definitely use, is Asana. That's a great one for if you have a team because it allows you to bring people in, they can share, you can create just a template project and duplicate that where everything is going to be in that system. So you only have to create that one template project and then just copy and duplicate that project again and again. What I don't like about Asana is that it doesn't automatically assign the dates. So it's not going to assign the dates so you're going to have to constantly go in and adjust the dates of when tasks need to be done. And for us, in the way we produce podcast episodes here at Your Podcast Guru, dates definitely matter. So we have things that need to happen one day after another thing happens, or because everything is based off of getting that podcast episode released on a very specific day at a very specific time. So everything is very date driven and very deadline driven. So these things need to happen in a specific order in order to be accomplished. So I needed a system that was going to help facilitate that, and that's where I turned to Noseby. Right now, that is the system that I'm using, is because it allows to add teammates. It helps add some of the dates. We still have had to play around and adjust this a lot. It's not perfect by any means, but it has been the system that we've been using so far. I am looking into a few other systems still, constantly looking at adjusting this in terms of different software in terms of actually what is going to be most effective for capturing the system. But another thing you can do is you can just simply go to Evernote and just document your system there. If you're just a solo person, that's a great option. Honestly, that really is. And just you can go there, you can make sure everything's checked off, especially if you're not date driven, that's going to be really great. Or another option would be to actually go to a Google Doc and really document your system there. And you're going to want to, once you get your system digitized, you're going to want to go through and you're going to want to start restructuring and clumping the activities within your system, within your procedures. You're going to want to group things. So especially as things start to expand for us, like I said, we start from actually recording from reaching out to the client to remind them to record an episode to the end of the promotional period. So we've started to clump things in different order. So our publishing to WordPress is all clumped. All the actions is a subtask under that main task. That's a big reason why I love Asana. And we've made it work in Noseby, but not perfectly. But that's a big reason why I loved Asana, because we could easily create subtasks and we could easily create links and things like that within that subtask, so that all the information is contained there in that one system, that one project, so people can just follow through, check everything off, make sure everything's checked. It allows for easy quality assurance because there are checked boxes. So then the quality assurance person, our production manager, can go through and make sure that, hey, you said, as a production assistant, you said that this task was done, but it isn't. So that's a little checks and balances that we can have there within the team to make sure everyone is doing what they're supposed to do. And if you're a solopreneur, that is huge, to be honest. That's where I really loved having those checkboxes, is because I could go in when it was just me and make sure that, yes, I checked every single step. I didn't miss a single one. It was a huge way to keep the quality of the podcast up. So once you're going through and you're restructuring, then it's time to implement and revise. It's time to start using this on a regular basis. And I want to be 100. I want you to really realize, just because you created this system, you created these procedures that you're going to follow, and for the most part, you'll follow them. And especially after a few weeks, you'll start following them, and you'll notice that everything is pretty locked in and pretty solid. But I want you to have that freedom to continue to implement, to continue to revise your system. You need to be committed to actually using the system first, going through, clicking the little check boxes, following the procedures step by step. By not following them, that's the biggest flaw in creating some of these systems, is when people don't actually follow them. So especially as a solopreneur, that when I was just me, that's when I had the hardest time actually following systems, or that's when the system would really break down, is when I didn't go through and make myself follow it and do the double checks, make sure I was checking off all the boxes, and that's where mistakes started to creep into the system. But if you can make that commitment to yourself to actually follow through on things step by step by step, then you're going to start to produce those high quality results. Then you're going to start to really see that consistency across all the episodes that you're creating. And once you get there, you're going to be able to start to revise your systems. You're going to find different ways that you can start tweaking to maybe make your system a little more efficient, to make it easier on you, to start creating certain templates in specific areas. Or maybe you go from, okay, I have consistently producing content down, I'm showing up week after week after week. Now it's time to start adding some lead magnets, some unique lead magnets to each of those episodes. Well, I can start adding that into my system, and then I can start producing those results on a consistent basis again. And then it's time to add another piece. It's time to add that next element. Okay, let's add more promotional aspects now into the podcasting workflow that we have now created. Ultimately, that's what you're doing, is you are creating a really solid workflow that is going to allow you to get the most out of the content that you're producing and really help impact and influence your audience. And ultimately, that's going to help grow your business. Now, if you want, I have a couple of resources I want to mention before we wrap up. If you want to start if you're getting ready to start your own podcast and you want to take your, make sure it goes off without a hitch, you can grab our new podcast planning checklist. This is going to be the system we use whenever we're starting a new client's podcast. We will go through and make sure that we create all these different elements. This is to make sure that basically every single asset or aspect of that podcast launch is created and ready to go. That's the checklist that we use here internally to make sure we didn't miss anything, to make sure that we have all the pieces that we need to produce a high quality podcast launch for that client. And you can grab that by heading on over to yourpodcastguru.com/download 53. That's yourpodcastguru.com/download 53, or simply type the word download 53 in the comments here on this Facebook page. If you're here on the Facebook page, and you're going to be able to, we'll send you that system. You'll get a message from our page, and you'll be able to get access to that new podcast planning checklist. The other big resource I wanted to mention is that Michael Hyatt, if you've been following along on our daily videos, Michael Hyatt has a brand new webinar that is all around the 7 sins of productivity. And he helps you get over these sins and be more productive. He helps you create some of these systems that we're talking about and really take your productivity to that next level. To sign up for that webinar, all you have to go is go to yourpodcastguru.com/focus, or simply type the word focus here in the Facebook comments. And I'm a big fan because not only did this webinar, I went through it already. He's had several of them over the last week, but I went through that and got some great tips to really help boost my productivity. But at the end of the webinar, he's going to be mentioning his Free to Focus course. I'm a huge fan of that course. I went through it about a year ago now, and that really got me thinking about a lot of the systems in a little bit different way and how I could just be more efficient and be more productive, have more focus in my day, to really focus on the things that matter and not just spinning the wheels and constantly being distracted by the emails that I'm getting or by the distractions that happen in everyday life or spending too much time on the tasks that in the long run don't matter as much. So with this, I want to really encourage you to go check out Michael Hyatt's Free to Focus course. Again, you can go to that same URL, yourpodcastguru.com/focus. That's going to take you to the webinar page. Go through the webinar, and then at the end, I want to encourage you to check out his Free to Focus course. I actually have a couple of bonuses. I just want to quick mention, if you are interested, if you end up purchasing the Free to Focus course, I'm going to send you a few bonuses. Number one is Cal Newport's Deep Work. It's a book that I want to send your way because this book had a huge impact on the way I structure my day, on the things that I do, on the tasks that I really focus on. And so it was after reading this book that I got involved in Michael Hyatt's course, and his course really showed me how to implement some of the things that Cal was talking, and really focusing in on the things that are going to make you most productive. And in addition to that book, if you get the course, I am going to be going through the course with you. And we're going to be holding 5 weekly implementation calls. So his course, the Free to Focus course, is a 21-day productivity map. So basically, you're going to go through things in 21 days, and he's going to show you how to be more productive in that time frame. Well, every single week, I'm going to jump on a call with you, and we can really hold each other accountable. We can talk about any questions that we're having. I've went through the course already. I've implemented a lot of things from that course, and it has made a huge impact on my business and just life in general. But I'm going to be going through it a second time here to really dive in with you, and I'll be like a week ahead of you because I'm going to start right now going through and listening to it again. But I want to help you implement everything that Michael is teaching. So you can join me for those 5 weekly calls if you purchase the Free to Focus course. And again, that URL is yourpodcastguru.com/focus, or simply type the word focus here in the comments and you'll get access to the webinar, which will then lead to the course. And with that, I just want to really encourage you to go through and start creating some systems in your business, especially around your content creation. That's going to be the biggest way that you can ensure that you are producing high quality content that is having that impact on your audience's life. And so I just want to thank you for tuning into this episode of The Power of Podcasting. We are live every single week on Wednesday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time over on the Facebook page, or we are releasing podcast episodes every single Friday. So you can head on over to yourpodcastguru.com to find out all the information about the show and about our business and how we can help you take your business to the next level by helping you maximize both your income, your impact, and income through podcasting.